And good day, everybody. Hastings County Sasquatch coming at you here with a special guest on today. Peter Smith from Ontario Sasquatch.
Yeah, and welcome back. I know we had a little hiatus here. But anyways, before we move on with the show there, I just want to remind everybody to like, subscribe, and hit the notification button. That way we can, you can get the latest podcasts as soon as they go up. So anyways, no further ado, let's go kick things off with Peter Smith, Ontario Sasquatch. Hey Peter, how's it going?
Hey guys, thanks for inviting me. I'm pleased to be doing this.
Well, it's good to see you again. The last time we were together, I think we were down in Metis in Ontario there.
Yeah.
Doing an investigation down there. And we got talking about a few subjects that we should probably touch on. But Daryl was saying he has a brief update on what's going on down there with the homesteaders down there.
Yeah. That we called Jack and Diane and spoke to them a couple months ago. They had putting up some cameras around the home, and they noticed at certain times they were getting blank cameras on the one side of the house towards the forest. Just black recordings, that was it. And then they would come on later. So they replaced the cameras, but the same thing happened repeatedly after that.
Mm-hmm.
This is quite a common occurrence, isn't it?
Yeah. Even with trail cameras and stuff like that. Even though sometimes I do see some stuff that seems pretty good, or people claim to have some other things that are pretty good, but they just won't post it.
There's not a whole lot of people coming forward other than, this couple here anyways, but is that a common thing with you, Peter? Or?
Well, when trail cameras first came out 20, 25 years ago, whatever it was, we expected to be getting some real good footage. But with all the thousands of cameras out there, I've yet to see a good picture.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we have personal experience with that. I had a trail camera set up at our gifting area. The first couple of shots is me placing some food and things. Then we see some deer, some raccoons, both day and night because it's a night vision camera. Mm-hmm. Then I see a short video of a stick being waved in front of the camera. Okay. Nothing else, just the stick, and then there's no reason why the stick would be there. It looked like a branch of a tree being blown, but there's no branch near there. Mm-hmm. Then there's photos of me coming back to check the bait.
Yeah. And
all the food's gone. It's not food that would be attractive to deer. The food's gone. One of them was a peanut butter jar, which we had in the branch of a tree. The lid was removed. The peanut butter was cleaned out. You can see the swipe marks inside the jar. No picture of it, whatever took it. And this is not uncommon. This happens a lot. And we don't understand what it is about trail cams and Sasquatch, but we can't get a picture.
Yeah, I wonder, maybe we need some sort of different technology, or they can sniff this thing out, or is it an energy source they can detect? I don't know.
Maybe their eyes. It might
we used to think that it was probably the IR lights on the cameras that they were detecting, but we had an audio recorder tampered with, and it was hidden. So somehow they can detect electronic, maybe it's the small electronic field, the corona around the instrument or what, but the audio gave us the idea that, hey, they can find our electronic equipment.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Seems to be.
Well, I've had my cameras out back in Thurlow in the past when I was living there, and I've had them triggered. I had one that would last 90 seconds, and they were triggered, and there was absolutely nothing in the field of view. One time I had another one on still shots, and it just fur in front of the camera, like as if something was waving its hand in front of it, standing behind it, That's the only weird thing I ever kind of got. Other than
And-
that, just deer, just regular animals going through there, a bear, stuff like that. That's what I've got. But that's the one strange thing that I have on the cameras.
Yeah, it triggers for other animals, particularly deer, but not for the hairy guy.
Yeah.
Now, have you had any reports with the Sasquatch actually moving the cameras to the other side of the tree or something like that, or removing the camera altogether?
Not that I can recall. No, I do have one picture on my own trail cam. I had it concealed. It was on the side of a hill at our trailer, actually. And of course, it's a blurry image. He moved past the camera fast. I do have one image, which is too blurry to post as any kind of evidence. But that's the only picture. And he would have had to have passed the camera before he would have been aware of it because it was shielded by a tree. That's the only picture we have.
Interesting.
Actually, I'll share it with you guys, but I wouldn't publish it.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Interesting to see.
Yeah, so we're curious there. You've been in this business for quite a number of years now, eh, Peter?
Yeah, actually, not as long as my wife. She had her first face-to-face encounter in 1962, and she's been on the trail ever since. I've been on it since about 2006. So, yeah, I got a few years in. I always used to think Sasquatch was something from the Pacific Northwest.
No.
And it wasn't until I realized that they were actually in Ontario that it got my attention.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think about it too much. I always thought it was a Western thing, Pacific Northwest, and then I had a strange experience, which we've talked about before, up by Parry Sound, and I got whistled at from the woods. There was a slap on the shed that was like 20 feet, 30 feet from us, and then I started to realize that they were in Ontario too, and that's when I started my research. That was 2004.
Yeah, and I've had anything from trees being pushed down in my general area, on like on a nice calm day and everything like that, or being out deer hunting and coming across these structures that are blocking my way on my trails, and getting the feeling of being watched and stuff like that. So, and after talking to you, we established it was probably infrasound that we're talking about. So.
That was Parry Sound report. Where in relation to Parry Sound was that? North, south, east, west?
East. It was a
Rue Bottom Lake?
Rue Bottom Lake, RUE Bottom Lake. So that's
A little northeast of
Parry.
Parry Sound.
It's not too far from McKellar.
Sorry?
It's not too far from McKellar. We drove to McKellar one day, so it's like if you see McKellar on the map, but it should come up.
I was just about to mention McKellar, Whitestone Lake, which is just northeast of McKellar, a few kilometers. We had a very interesting occurrence there just summer before last, 220, summer of 220. COVID was out. The cabin that we went to had not been occupied for several years, but the owner and his wife, to get away from all the COVID nonsense, they decided to go and open up the cottage and spend a few months there. Well, I guess while the cottage was abandoned, the Sasquatch had moved into the area, and they didn't like the humans showing up.
Yeah.
So they started piling. They were hollering all day and night. They started to build a wall out of stumps and logs and branches, and we had a look at that. And they'd actually built a fence or a barricade between the cabin and what they considered to be their backyard.
Yeah.
And what we found interesting, we have a lot of photographs of it. What we found interesting was that the Sasquatch had used the orange surveyor's tape they put it in several places along their fence.
Yeah.
And that got my attention. Where'd the surveyor's tape come from? And the owner said, well, there's no surveyor's tape around here anywhere. So we figured Sasquatch had been watching humans build fences and do surveying and everything else, and realized that this orange tape was a significant part of the boundary marker.
Mm-hmm.
So to send the message to the humans, they've gone and used it on their own fence. Now, that's a good sign of intelligence.
That's amazing, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's interesting.
Wow.
So they kept building the fence while the people were there. The people contacted us, said, what can we do? I said, well, you can either leave or you can learn to live with them. So we gave some tips about leaving food out, showing that you weren't aggressive, actually speaking to them, leaving apples and pumpkin and whatever out for them, and just generally showing that you're a friendly neighbor. And this seems to have worked, because here we are a year later, and the humans are still there, and the Sasquatch is still there.
Wow.
And getting along, but the aggression has gone away, except when he first arrived this year. In 2021, he started his generator. They didn't like that, so they started putting sticks and branches up against the exhaust from the generator where the sound was coming out. He had little like a cinder block outhouse was the generator house.
Yeah.
And they had pretty well covered this thing with branches and stuff to try and kill the sound. So he stopped using the generator as often as he did. He didn't use it at night. He just used it to charge his batteries during the day. But other than that, the Sasquatch are tolerating him, and he's tolerating the Sasquatch.
Wow.
Now, what other kind of aggressive behavior were they encountering? They're getting like rocks thrown at them and stuff like that, or
there was one incident where they were throwing rocks at him. They never hit him, of course. They were throwing rocks into the water while he was fishing in his boat.
That's cool.
He's on a little bit of a peninsula, just a small peninsula. He was fishing on the south side one day, and a huge tree got pushed over into the water. So that got his attention. And on another occasion, the same thing happened on the north side of the peninsula. No danger to him apart from getting his attention and getting him a little bit concerned.
Yeah.
I can attest to that, because I had two trees, pushed down in my general area. One time I was canoe camping up in the Temagami area on Lady Evelyn Lake, had a tree pushed down there, and one other time in Hastings County, I was sitting on a deer watch up on a high bluff, I guess, and probably about 80 yards away, a tree gets pushed down, and there's no wind. We had blue skies and really warm weather, which was horrible for deer hunting, but there's no reason for a tree to come crashing down, but it did. So, and then well, here's the other thing too I noticed, Peter, was I had a set of Walker game ears, which were basically microphones, I guess, sensitive microphones, so you can practically hear a fish fart from 50 yards away. So I put them on, and I was getting a weird clicking noise. So I don't know if that's been known to Sasquatch make clicking sounds and stuff like that with their mouths or whatever, or clacking rocks, or I don't know. It was really weird for me.
Yeah, I've heard the clicking sound, not personally, but I've heard the reports of the clicking sounds quite often, actually.
Okay.
One thing that we did discover last year, speaking of vocals, we'd always used maple sticks for knocking, and very quickly, in a matter of seconds, we get a reply. And so I was wondering, are they carrying sticks around, or how are they quickly replying to us with these wood knocks? And then we had a report that actually came through another organization, where a guy was stood on the side of a valley, and he was knocking with a Sasquatch that was on the other side, And then he used his binoculars, and he actually viewed the Sasquatch vocalizing the knocking sound. So they were clucking with their tongue or something. It was almost, to us, it sounded like a wood knock, but they were using their voice. So they don't carry sticks around. They just quickly use their vocal cords to make this knocking sound. Very deep, and it's just like maple on maple.
Yeah, I've heard them before, like the knocking sounds, and they can be as loud as a gunshot almost, because I was sitting by the edge of a lake and I'm hearing these loud knocking sounds, and it sounded like a gunshot, but you know how you get the reverberation of a gunshot across a lake. We didn't get any of that, but we certainly heard it, and it sounded like a gunshot. That's how loud these knocks were in some cases.
Yeah, incredibly loud, and as you say, there's no reverberation or concussion sound after that.
Yeah. Man, oh man.
I've only heard a clack or two one time after a slight vocal, again on the same property back home for me and in Hastings, and yeah, I had gotten there and just said, well, I'm here, and then in my head, and then standing on the deck later, I hear just a slight vocal far off, and then closer, which seemed to be roughly within 100 meters from where we were standing, and it's a laneway, a clack on a rock back there, just clack. So I don't think I included that on any of the reports we've ever done. So, but that was a couple summers ago.
They seem to have quite a range or vocabulary with their voices. They can mimic birds, they can mimic animals, they can sound like they're knocking on wood. Tremendous range within their voices.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also screams too. I guess we have. I guess you have a few investigators on your team that recorded some screams and whatnot when they're on vacation or something at a cottage somewhere.
Yes, there's one weird one we had in earlier this year, and it's been going on for 2 years. The voice sounds kind of female. It's not as deep as some of the others, and it's more of a wail. It puts me in the mind of a lone female that's just wailing because she's lonely or something. It just goes on continuously, and it's now gone on for 2 years.
Wow.
This is
We don't know why.
Yeah, now I'm curious. Is that up and around the Hastings area, in or around that area, or?
It's actually more towards Barry's Bay. That's a Peterborough area, isn't it?
No.
Barry's Bay.
Barry's
Is that Hastings?
Yeah, that's just outside of Hastings. If not, it's in Hastings. But yeah, it's in the general area.
I have my map.
Okay. Yeah, Madawaska, Barry's Bay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's not too far away from Bolter. And we had this one young lady basically had a sighting, just trying to retrieve her dog that was barking at this creature. And she caught up to her dog, and she found out what the dog was barking at. And this big old Sasquatch walked across the road and took off in the bush. And that scared the crap out of her, and she ran in the house pretty quick. But yeah, that was up in the Bolter area.
Yeah, and that's where I had my crossing as a kid.
Yeah, exactly. And Daryl's first sighting was just, I think it was 7 kilometers south of her house.
Okay.
When I went to go investigate that. So
yeah, so that area, that repressed that memory for years, and then when I got back into this topic, that had resurfaced, and I know. And it's too bad the guy that was driving the truck, my dad's best friend, he recently passed away just before the turn of the year. So
yeah, it's amazing. There's a lot.
There's a lot of reports for the Hastings area. Mostly they're homeowners or cottage owners that have an experience on or near their property.
yeah.
Do you have any examples, Peter? Offhand?
Offhand, there's a few where people are in their backyard with a fire, and they hear things in the bush. These are all houses and cottages that back onto the bush. They're having their fire. They're roasting hot dogs or whatever. And the smells of hot dogs particularly attract them. And they hear these grunts and growls in the bush, and they realize there's something there, but they're not quite sure what it is.
Right. I do recall one in the Coe Hill area, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was one in Coal Hill area. I can't think of any offhand, but there's quite a few in Hastings for sure.
Yeah, well, Hastings County is pretty long. Like it travels from north to south, anyways. That county, so it's almost a transient, I guess. Almost. I don't know if they.
Yeah, doesn't it go from about Belleville up into the Halliburton area?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bancroft. Yeah.
Bottom.
Yeah, it's quite long.
Bottom end of Algonquin Park too.
Yeah.
That's right.
Which brings up the question there. We've seen some videos there that you shared with us regarding, I guess, one of your investigators that had a GoPro camera on the front bumper of his vehicle, and he actually filmed one on the right hand side of the road going through Algonquin Park.
Yeah, he's always got that goal. He's not one of our investigators. Actually, he's one of our contacts.
Oh, gotcha.
He puts the GoPro on his bumper and he just records. So he was on his way home from Algonquin Park. Excuse me. And he passed this one spot, and his wife said, "Oh, what's that?" And he was traveling at full speed, so he didn't bother slowing down. But when he got home, he checked his GoPro. He knew roughly where it was on the time marker. And sure enough, in the ditch beside a stream that's going through a culvert, there's a Sasquatch. He's kind of stood in the shadows, so you wouldn't see him unless you were actually looking. And of course, his wife was the passenger. She was watching the side of the road. Mm-hmm. So he sent that to us. He had already put it online.
Yeah, there's more.
And then I beg your pardon?
Oh, I said there's more of a story to that. I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen this. Yeah.
The MNR got wind of it and called him into a meeting and weren't too happy that it was online. That actually happened in the North Bay MNR office, and I don't mind saying that because it's already online anyway.
Right.
They were briefing their MNR officers on how to deal with people that report Sasquatch sightings. And they wanted a copy of the video. So he just told them to look online. It was already there.
Aha. Well, yeah, you did send us a copy of it. Is that all right if we post it here?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, good. Well, thank you.
Okay.
Once it's in the public domain, there's no copyrights anymore.
All right. Well, we'll be happy to share that with our viewers. So speaking of the MNR knowing these things exist, there's got to be a couple other examples, in various districts of a cover-up, perhaps, or.
Have you seen the Ontario Sasquatch photo of a black gymnast?
Yes, I think we use that in a
It's
couple.
a very clear photo. We've been accused of photoshopping and everything. Of course, I used Photoshop to put our logo on there, but that's the only thing we did as far as a touch-up to get the copyright secured.
Correct.
An elderly couple were opening up their cottage on Duncanson Lake up in the Temagami area. And they were opening the shutters, and the lady looked out of the shutters as she was opening them, and she saw this thing standing on a hill behind the cottage, about 100 feet or so away. So she summoned her husband, who came to the window, saw what it was, went and grabbed his camera, and this was in the days when camera memory cards were 1 megabyte or there. So he had to delete a few pictures, because I'm telling you this because I'm often asked, how come he only got 1 or 2 pictures? Well, he had to delete a few to make some room on his memory card as he rushed outside. And this thing stood perfectly still so that he hopefully wouldn't be noticed. Our eyes detect movement, of course. So he actually got 3 pictures. The third one, the Sasquatch is escaping into the bush, and it's not very good. So I only post the first 2, which is the stationary Sasquatch. It probably heard the click of the camera, realized it was seen, tried to get away. He got off 1 more shot, and then the third, and it was gone. So he went up to the hill after that and measured compared the picture to a branch and figured the thing was about 9 feet tall.
Okay. Yeah.
Wow.
His wife panicked, packed up everything, said, "Hey, we're out of here." They went to Temagami police station and reported it. And we have exactly the time and the date they reported it. He said, "Go back to your cottage and someone will come out and see you." So they went back to the cottage because they wanted to pack everything up. And 2 MNR people arrived the following morning. Actually, there was 3. There was an MNR officer and a biologist and an assistant. The MNR officer left shortly, but the 2 biologists stayed there for a couple of days. Now, they arrived in a white Escalade with a Fish and Game logo on the side. And I don't think every MNR guy's got a white Escalade, so these has to be a pretty senior biologist to be doing this, to have a white Escalade.
Yeah.
Anyway, they stayed there for a couple of days. I have their names, when they arrived, when they left. I contacted first the OPP in Temagami and asked for a copy of their report. They deny all knowledge of it, of course. And I contacted the MNR and asked to speak to the biologist or the assistant. And of course, they don't know anything about it either. So here we have a very good case of the witnesses giving us the time and date of the OPP report, the period that the biologist stayed at their cottage, and total denial.
Imagine that.
No, they left their cottage. They actually left the biologist there, and they left. And so the biologists were there maybe a day or so after the owners left. But we're not sure how long they were there, really.
Wow.
Now
They've never been back. They sold the cottage. They want nothing to do about it. They don't want the pictures online, but they'd already put the pictures online inadvertently, which is how we got a hold of them. They had gone to a lawyer and took out a copyright notice on the photos. The lawyer's assistant, to secure the copyright, put them on Panoramio. And of course, Panoramio in those days was linked to Google Earth, which is where we found the pictures.
Yeah.
Other than that, they didn't want any public acknowledgement at all, and that just adds credibility to their report because they're not after notoriety or their 5 minutes of fame. They just wanted to secure the copyright on their pictures.
Yeah, like who'd go and visit a lawyer if they're just going to throw a hoax down, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Just leak it online yourself, like.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but yeah, there's been other things happening up in Temagami. That's that Duncanson Lake was not too far away where I had my roadside crossing there. What was it, last year, the year before there? And this thing was huge. And it jumped up a 25, 30 foot berm, like a little rock face there. I'd never seen anything run that fast before. And but yeah, it looked pretty much just like that photograph there. Great big huge shoulders and everything too.
Wow.
Yeah, we don't take any credit for the picture, but we do have the copyright rights to it now. The owners, they don't want anything else to do with it. In fact, I don't even know if they're still around. They were quite elderly at the time, and that was 8 or 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned the name Genisqua.
Talking to, we have a lot of native contacts and members, and we have a good relationship with the native communities. They talk about this Genisqua, which is black, bigger than a Sasquatch, and not very friendly to humans. In fact, there's old stories of them raiding native villages and carrying off the young and the elderly and the sick. Obviously, as a food source, and they avoid them. Now, Sasquatch, they have a totally different view on. They call him Big Brother and the protector of the forest and everything else. But Genisqua is not a good guy.
Interesting.
Interesting.
Of course, to our community, Bigfoot is Bigfoot. Sasquatch is Sasquatch. But apparently there are several different related species.
Yeah. Well, we do have on our page it's actually from. I'll have to put it on later, but there's a story of a Dogman north of Brighton, Ontario. Yeah.
Yes, we have Dogman sightings.
So.
We have Dogman reports, but we have enough subject matter with Sasquatch. We can't diversify too much. There's a lot of different creatures out there that we get reports on.
Do you get little people reports?
That's interesting. My wife was in a gift shop 2 years ago, a native gift shop. She needed to buy a tobacco pouch or whatever, and she got talking to the lady there, and they had a good rapport going. So after they were done, I approached the lady just as we were about to leave, and I said, "Do you have any Sasquatch reports from this area?" And she said, "No, not really," she said, "but I have seen little people." I go, "Oh." So yeah, there's several native communities. They respect and acknowledge the little people. Apparently they're healers.
Okay. Interesting.
When you get reports like this that are unsolicited and you're not even on the same subject, it just comes out. And of course, they don't normally share, the native communities don't normally share stories outside their own community unless they trust that you're going to keep it to yourself. And I don't mention where it was, just that it does happen.
Yeah, we do the same thing. We keep everybody anonymous, definitely, for sure.
Peter, going back to that Temagami area there, do you recall of missing people or something like that up in the Maple Mountain area in particular?
Yeah, there's two. Actually, I was going to mention it a little earlier, but we got sidetracked there. The Duncanson Lake one is very close to where Dan Trask disappeared and where they found his clothing and his backpack. And it was all spread around. They finally found his remains. We followed. Actually, we got involved with the search, not on the ground, but talking to other people. And that was, I think, 2 or 3 kilometers south of Duncanson where they actually found his remains. So while we're up there asking questions and talking to people, we heard about an old story, and we can't get a lot of information on it because it's just a local account, if you like. 2 girls were hiking to Maple mountain lookout tower, and that's only canoe access.
Yeah.
And there's a campground on the shore where they leave the canoes, and their parents were there, and they were hiking up to the mountain, and the one girl stopped to go for a pee, and her friend carried on slightly, and all of a sudden there was this very loud scream, and just a single scream, and nothing. And the girl that had stopped rushed to see what was going on to help out if she could, and there was no sign of her friend. So she rushed back to the campground and reported it. I don't know how long it took to get the authorities in there, because of course it's only canoe access. Cell phone service probably not great, but anyway, eventually the search parties came out. They brought dogs and everything else. They found no traces. There was no drag marks. There was no blood. There was nothing. So she, in our opinion, she had to have been carried away. Otherwise, the dogs or the people would have found drag marks of some description. If it had been a cougar or a bear or whatever, there'd be drag marks.
Yeah.
There would certainly have to have been blood, because they can only drag something with their teeth.
Yeah.
There was no sign whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we don't have any reports of two humans ever being attacked, but there's an awful lot of lone hikers that go missing.
Yeah.
And I've been told, oh, well, they got lost. And I said, no. I said, backcountry hikers don't get lost. They know exactly where they're going. They're quite competent. They're disappearing for another reason. Berry pickers get lost because they're picking berries and not paying attention to where they are, and they wander around. And yes, berry pickers get lost, but backcountry hikers don't get lost.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I remember also reading another book about the Ministry of Natural Resources had a helicopter crash on the side of Maple Mountain, and I wish I had the book here with me, but it said like the remains were obviously inside the aircraft, the helicopter, and I guess the M&R blamed it on a gang of bears or a flock of bears for dragging the remains out of the helicopter. And I'm, as a hunter, I'm thinking how many. I've yet to see, bears hang out like in flocks or a gang of bears that are going to come in and drag everybody out of a helicopter, basically, which I thought was kind of weird. I think that took place in the 80s or something.
I'm not aware of that one, but I do know that bears are generally solitary beings, unless you're talking about dump bears that have the party.
I don't think there's any dumps around there.
No, there's something funny about that story.
Yeah, exactly. So,
but speaking of helicopters, excuse me, going back to Duncanson Lake, in the many discussions I had with the owners of the cabin where the Janasco was photographed, he talks about big boulders being put across the road to block access to that. This is about 2 hours drive in from the main highway, or Highway 11, I think it is. The boulder's been put across the road to block access. He'd seen Black Hawk helicopters circling the area several times. That the season after they reported this to the OPP, there was no moose tags issued for that area, for that township.
Imagine that.
Interesting. Yeah.
Isn't that odd?
Yeah.
No, this is up in Temagami, where above the park area. There's no hunting in the park, of course, but there's always been moose tags handed out for the area. And this 1 year, there was no moose tags handed out.
I don't know.
Moose sound dangerous.
Yeah.
Well, they are, but anyway. Yeah, that's.
I don't want to say too much because I'm going to get myself into trouble, but this is only one of several reports we have of black helicopters, special forces, people with automatic weapons, that type of thing, following a Sasquatch report. So are they going in and removing the rogue Sasquatch when people go missing? Is this what's going on?
Yeah, that's one question.
If they can find them, that's the thing.
If they can find them.
Yeah.
We can't find them, and we've been looking for them for years.
Yeah, maybe they have a special technology to find them in some way. Who knows?
Well, they've got all the military equipment, the night vision, the special FLIRs and everything else, yes.
Yeah, thermal FLIR, yeah, all that.
Plus they got the helicopters with the heat sensors on them.
Mm-hmm.
So explain that, the heat sensors, what
I beg your pardon?
explain that, the heat sensors on the helicopter, what do you mean?
Well, we use FLIRs for night vision, and they sense heat, right? The FLIRs.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Well,
That's
the
what you
military grade FLIRs are a lot more sensitive than ours.
Yeah, I bet. I've seen some videos on the new advanced stuff, even if that was true or not, I don't know, but I've seen some stuff that had turned my head on. Wow, that's some pretty good night vision that you have there, and you can tell heat and with it and turn it off, up and down. It's amazing. So.
Oh yeah, it's we've got the cheap stuff, and ours is expensive enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just picked up one unit here. That was at least $800 before inflation kicked in here. So that's the forward-looking infrared.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is a handy piece of kit because, behind that garden where the homesteaders were, where we were getting that eye shine, we were able to compare heights. Where we got Daryl that sits around 6'1", I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, he looked like a little baby compared to this thing. They still towered over him by a good 2 feet.
I was surprised by the difference too. I didn't realize it was that high when I saw that comparison that we did. But yeah, one more thing from that area, if you want, just to get this out of the way. It's a report from somebody who knows a friend of our homesteader friends, Diane. There, apparently a kid had asked a teacher in the general Madoc area. I don't think it was right in Madoc. I think it was to the east. And then a kid had asked a teacher if monsters exist. And she said, well, why do you ask? And he says, well, I saw a large hairy monster at the back of my property. I guess it was inside the woodline staring at the house. And that's all I got. I didn't get the complete area. They didn't want to say, but yeah, I'm not sure what his activity was, if he was looking out the window or playing in the yard or something. I don't know. He just said he saw it. So that's one thing I had gotten. And
was it the teacher that reported that?
She didn't report it. She told a friend who told another friend who told Diane.
Oh,
so
okay. So it came from Diane. All right.
Yeah. So.
Yep, that's. I mean, kids, well, and people, adults actually, they're going to report something that they can comprehend.
Yeah.
They don't know what it was, so they have to use terms like a gorilla or ape. In the kid's case, it was a monster.
Yeah.
They're reporting things that within their realm of knowledge, if you like.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Excuse me. So, you have any active areas going on that you guys are investigating right now there, Peter?
Not while it's raining. We've never had any action while it's raining, but we've had a few investigators come up to go out with us, and we were trying to get the springtime is the best time. The ground is soft. It's pretty hard to avoid leaving footprints There's no leaves on the trees, so it's great. And as long as the rain holds off, we can quite often get action. The nearest thing we've come to in our local area, we find that the deer are very timid normally, but when there's a Sasquatch around, the deer will put themselves between. They'll put us between themselves and the Sasquatch. They come quite close to us because they know that as long as they're near humans, they're safe. Now, this happens 2 or 3 times a year. We'll be in there. We'll have that sense of something's watching us,
Right.
and then we'll see some deer moving towards us, and they'll circle us, and they'll stop, and that kind of tells us what direction the Sasquatch are in. Because of course the deer can sense them. We can't smell them very well or sense them, but the deer know they're there, and the deer stay close to us. And so it's always after dark. During the day, they just run off.
Yeah. Wow.
That's interesting. So that feeling of being watched, how
That happened several years ago. I was talking to 3 Métis hunters, and I actually used this case as an example of how people react to Sasquatch. 3 Métis hunters have been living in the bush all their year. They live in town, but they hunt together all the time. They've been doing this for years and years. Very comfortable in the bush, capable, competent hunters. The one guy reported it to us because he was a believer. The second witness kind of on the fence. He'd never seen one. Didn't know if they were true or not. The other guy, definitely, absolutely. I've been in a bush all my year. I would have seen one. They don't exist. Total denial. First guy, again, totally accepting when they saw the Sasquatch. They were sitting down having lunch, and it crossed the trail 150 feet south of them. The second guy, okay, I've seen one. Yeah, okay, they do exist. The third guy, who was in total denial, never went back to his hunt camp. I'm talking to them the following year. He'd never been back to his hunt camp. He'd had nightmares. Hadn't gone hunting again.
Wow.
And this shows that they're all Métis hunters. They're all competent in the bush, and it shows the 3 personalities, how they accept Sasquatch.
Yeah.
Well, while I'm talking to witness number 1 and 2, they tell me about this spot north of Blind River where they hunt all the time. And there's this one spot they go to that the deer are very friendly. They've never seen deer approach that. These are deer hunters. They've never seen the deer approach them like that.
Yeah.
And the one guy tells me about the one time he was in the bush close to this area, and he felt panic. He had to leave, and he left and went back to his trailer. Went back the next day, and everything was fine. So he's talking to me, and he said, "I don't understand this." I said, "I think you experienced infrasound." I said, "This is quite common. It's a fear of dread." I said, "We have loads of reports of this. You have a sudden panic comes on you, and you have this need to leave the area." I said, "You go back the next day, and you're fine." So where the deer were being friendly, it's the same thing as we were experiencing. That the deer, there's a Sasquatch in the area. The deer sense it. The deer put you between them and the Sasquatch.
Yeah.
I still have to go back and talk to him about our own experiences on this. Excuse me. When he first told me, I hadn't heard about it before, but this is new. This is new information that we have to kind of put in the back of our heads and just see if it happens again. And of course, it has happened again.
Mm-hmm. So I guess the infrasound had to be low frequency of some.
Yes, we did a study on infrasound. It's quite common in many animals. The Europeans have done studies on it with orchestra. They played orchestrated pieces with infrasound in some of them, and they tested the audience reaction. The human range, I mean, there's nothing magical about it. It's the human hearing range is pretty limited, and below 17 hertz, we don't hear anything. And infrasound is below 17 hertz. It could be various frequencies. I guess some of them are for communication between animals or whatever. Some of them are to warn other animals. Many animals are capable of it. Elephants, giraffes, lions. I mean, the list is endless. And now we're pretty sure that's what Sasquatch is using as well. And of course, if their vocals can go that low, so can their hearing.
Mm-hmm.
True.
Which lends to the question: if they can use infrasound, why are they being audible in our hearing range? Why don't they just communicate in their own hearing range that we don't even know about it?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
True.
I remember being up at visiting Jack and Diane, and I was sitting by the one window the one night before we had met you, and I reported to everybody in the room that I had getting like really nauseous all of a sudden, and we weren't drinking or anything like that. It was, I just all of a sudden felt nauseous. So
I remember you mentioning that.
Yeah. And I was sitting right next to that open window, and that was the forest side, and it's like, oh.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I wasn't scared or anything. I just felt nauseous, and then went just because we were gonna have a late night. I think I went out for a nap and went to the car. So I went napped in the car because I didn't. There's nowhere in the house for me, so. But I wasn't that scared that I couldn't go out to the car, which was right beside that window. So, but that was that was one feeling. That was the one, just nausea. That's it for me.
In Lake Superior Provincial Park, we had a sighting. It was an early morning sighting. It was in early April. There was still a little bit of snow around, but generally the snow was gone. And we had this report come in, so I contacted our investigator in Wawa. I said, could you go down to Old Woman Bay? And I said, see if there's any tracks in the snow. There's still a bit of snow in the bush, but even though the highway's clear. So he went down there, and he took his buddy with him, and they found some tracks into the bush. They took photographs. And his camera went dead. So the next day he went back, but his friend the first day had experienced infrasound, and he said, "I'm not going back there." He said, I can't go back there." So he took his son and his wife with him, and his wife stayed in the car while him and his son went into the bush. And about 100 feet into the bush, past the tree line, he did. I think his son experienced it first, and then a few seconds later or a minute, he experienced infrasound. So they went back to the car, and his wife said, "Oh, I'm so glad you're back." She said, "This feeling of dread came over me. I was just so anxious for your safety. I'm glad that you came back when you did. Let's leave." So he talked to her, and he realized that she's experienced infrasound. And she's inside a closed vehicle with the windows up, and about 150 feet away from where they had experienced it. Yeah. Now, the first day it happened, he didn't know what was going on with his friend, so he contacted me that night, and he said he was just so panicked. He said, "I don't know what went on. I felt fine." I said, oh, that was infrasound. So I gave him the rundown on what we knew of. This was the early days for us even. And I gave him what we knew about infrasound. So when his wife experienced it the next, and he and his son, he was okay with it because he understood it. And he was able to describe to me how his wife reacted. And a lot of studies been done since then. This is a few years ago. So we have no doubts about the Sasquatch ability to use infrasound, probably to warn off the humans. You know, you're close enough.
Yeah.
Back off. Mm-hmm. On this same trail, when he went back in the next day, about 9 or 10 feet up, the branches had been twisted back on themselves. You have to go between these two big trees to get onto the trail, and the branches had been broken up on one of the trees, and clearly a territory marker says, I can break branches this far up in the tree. This is how big I am. Got to be some kind of sign like that.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Yeah, we have come across like some tree breaks there, like even with what, an 8-inch diameter tree. Mind you, it wasn't snapped off too high. It was like closer to 3 or 4 feet off the ground. Just snapped right over. And it wasn't done by snow load or heavy winds, because we went to go and check it out. All the green pine needles were still green, so it was just recently snapped.
Mm-hmm.
But I've yet to come across a human be able to snap something was like 8-inch in diameter, 4 foot off the ground.
Yeah.
Did I send you the photos or the report of that fence that I was talking about?
Of the what, sorry?
The fence that they created?
The fence that the Sasquatch created?
I may have seen it on your Facebook page like a couple years ago, I think.
There's one tree there. It's got to be 6 to 8 inches in diameter, the tree, and it's snapped back on itself like a paperclip.
Huh.
I mean, it actually snapped right back on itself.
Well, I got a photo from Jack and Diane's place where, they had already cut the tree by that point, but this tree was probably about 10 inches across. And that's the first time we went up there. They took us for a tour of the property back into the trails and stuff, and it had been twisted around, and you can clearly see it. I don't know if I put the photos on Facebook, but I will, having brought this up now. But that was impressive too. It was completely twisted, healthy tree. Wasn't dead in the middle. Everything. It was just looked like something just twisted it like it was a rubber band.
Yeah, it's incredible strength, unbelievable. When we're talking about the breaks that are 3 or 4 feet off the ground, I think that's a territory marker. That's only my opinion. But when I see them 10, 12 feet up in the tree, I think that's also a territory marker, but also a sign of, this is what you're dealing with. Mm-hmm. I'm this big.
Yeah.
In other words, a show of strength.
Yeah. Well, I went to go and check out another location up around the, in the Dundas area. One of the Dundas trails where apparently there was a Sasquatch sighting or footprints found. So, and it was on your site. And I'm hiking along.
It sounds familiar.
I was hiking along some of the trails, and we found a whole bunch of like branches and everything piled up against another tree, almost like a tree structure of some sort. But I don't know what to think, because you're so close to a human settlement and close to like a major city that could be anybody just doing the hoaxing thing and just sort of piling stuff up, or I don't know what to think.
This is the problem with close to human habitation. We don't know. I remember when I was a kid, we'd be in the bush making teepees and log cabins, and I mean, nothing like a log cabin. It's just a bunch of things pushed together.
Yeah.
But so much of them resemble what we know, believed to be Sasquatch activity. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
There was a time going back to when we first got involved with this, 2006, 2008. We would travel a couple of hours to where a report had been made. We'd go in the bush for another hour on our ATVs, and where the hunters had seen the Sasquatch, and we'd spend the weekend there. And then I started putting all the reports together as we went along year after year. And looking at our map, we don't go very far anymore. They come so close to human activity, towns, cities. It's just that they're on a different time frame to us. They're out at 3 o'clock in the morning when everyone's asleep. But they're very close to town. So we don't travel too far anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Don't have to.
Yeah, I guess you don't.
Now, when you talk to people that are open-minded, they're still a little bit incredulous that this big creature is living just down the street from us.
Yeah.
And I've heard many times, how come all the sightings are along the highways and stuff? I said, well, Sasquatch don't write reports. I said, it's the people driving down the highways that see them that write the reports.
Yeah.
If you go to remote areas, there's probably a lot more than we know about. A lot more. We're only seeing the ones that come close to humans.
Right.
I like the reports from the railroad drivers, the railroad engineers, those ones. I'd love to hear some more of those. I wonder how much, and all those remote rail lines and everything else, and all the hours of travel, how many reports how many times these drivers would have seen these things but just could not report it.
Oh yeah, 'cause here we're talking about one vehicle coming through. It's not like a highway. It's one vehicle every several hours or whatever.
Yeah.
And they're undisturbed till he comes along.
Yeah. So
Exactly.
I mean, I've heard of a few of them crossing the tracks or standing there watching the train go by, stuff like that. But I can't remember the source for those right now.
Well, yeah, we have, when it comes to the Sasquatch, they like to watch people for some reason, because when we first came across Jack and Diane, when we showed up at their property, we've seen where they like hop into their little garden area and also go and make like a little bed in the goldenrod. They have everything all totally mashed down, much bigger than a deer would be. But they'd mentioned that they get the feeling of being watched, I guess, from the garden area.
Mm-hmm.
And like all the goldenrod is just totally mashed down. It almost looks like an observation area. Just sitting there watching the house. Just watching the house.
And that's the eye shine video we got last October. They were standing in exactly that spot, right behind those trees.
Right. 80 kilometers west of Thunder Bay, there's a homestead. These people bought, 5 acres or 10 acres, whatever. They put their trailer there while they were building their house. And the owner went there one day, and a terrible smell of urine, where something had peed all over the step of his trailer. And then another time he was cleaning some paintbrushes or something, and he saw a Sasquatch standing in the tree line. So that's when he contacted us, and we advised to, like we do with all of them, either you're moving or they're moving, or you learn to live together. So he put out some food and tough stuff, and things got a little bit easier. And then as time went by, his kids would be playing in the yard, within the acreage, in the field, and they would be shouting, singing, or whatever kids do. Typical playground sounds, if you like.
Mm-hmm.
And in the field, they could see the female Sasquatch with a younger one standing there just watching them, intrigued, interested. And in the tree line, he could see the male. The male would never come out of the tree line, but he could see where the male was standing. But the female would actually move partially into the field to get closer to the children and just look interested.
Yeah.
And we think this happens quite a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So they didn't scream, running into the house or anything like that when they saw it, or?
No, because they talk. Well, not that we're the best experts on the subject, but they had talked to us, and we shared reports and we shared experiences, and they had decided, well, as long as the Sasquatch are leaving us alone, we'll leave them alone. We'll kind of learn to live with them. This is generally how witnesses are dealing with it. They realize that they don't want. They're building a new house. They don't want to move.
Right.
So what can they do to make it work?
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
So over a period of time, the Sasquatch kind of stop hollering at night and leave them alone, and the humans are okay with that.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that's not a one-off case that happens quite often. We only do Ontario Sasquatch, but we will consider reports that are close to the Manitoba and Quebec borders.
Mm-hmm.
So there's one place in just over the border in Manitoba. It's exactly the same thing. The guy's trees had been a few had been broken down to kind of market territory. He talked to us. What'll I do here? I said, well, do you want to live with them or do you want to do it? He said, well, if they leave me alone, I'm okay with it. I said, okay, well, put out some corn, put out some apples, and just show that you're friendly and you don't mean them any harm, and they probably leave you alone. And that's exactly what happens. He feeds them corn and whatever. He sees them occasionally. They don't shout and scream and try to drive them out. And everyone's happy.
Yeah. Wow.
Which brings me back to the homesteaders. What's the latest going on there?
Oh yeah, so they had put up a couple security cameras around the house, and the side where we had parked, in the same side of the house where the window was that I got the infrasound or felt nauseous anyway. They put up some cameras, and they don't know why, but the cameras would go black at certain times. They would just we talked about that, but have they seen any? Have they heard any? Yes. Okay. So the next thing she had reported. Sorry, we're just talking back. We're just showing each other a note here, but she's getting thumping noises, like it's beating on the chest, like really rapid beating of the chest. She described it as, and every time she goes to get her phone out to record it, because that's the only way she could record it, is it stops. So it's really strange, that one.
Interesting.
And out by the garden where we're filming at Eye Shine, they've cut down a lot of the cedar trees around that garden there. Like they cut them totally down, and the place doesn't look the same. There's nothing for them to hide behind now. So.
Well, there is the forest.
Yeah.
There's still spots around it.
Yeah, there's some forest, but they can't really get in too close now because they cut a lot of those cedar trees down.
Yeah.
Right. They haven't lost any chickens yet.
No.
Nope.
Haven't heard anything about that.
So.
Okay.
But they are inside an electric fence. So.
I'm just curious about the level of aggression or acceptance.
I would call it acceptance at this point, but they still come around for some entertainment, maybe here and there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you said that it looks like they got an observation spot there in the grass.
Yeah. But yeah, they cut down some of the cover. As like I said, the cedar trees are down now, and I think the weekend after we all met up down at that location, she had one run right by her, probably about 10, 15 feet away from her.
Excuse me. Yeah, that happened in the morning, I guess. She had let the dogs out, was just standing out while the dog roamed, and it thump right past her. And she fell down, and she put her, to protect herself as if she was getting attacked by a bear, she put her hands around her neck and stuff, and it ran right past her. So,
Wow.
she said it was about, I don't know, she says it was right on the road, right there next to me, and so I should ask her, I guess. I don't think she mentioned if the dog had reacted or not, but it might have been around the house or at the back or something like that. So
That's really puzzling, because he didn't have to run past her. He could have run any other direction.
yeah,
So why did he run past her?
I was thinking the same thing. I theorized like maybe it's like, don't have these people out here again, don't have so many visitors. Or but when we were at the fire, did we not get a yoo-hoo?
Yeah.
We recorded.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so I don't think we were being rowdy or anything, but yeah, this thing had, I don't know what type of message it would have been then, if they were mad that that they had had so much company, or some other form, something else, some other message that you just can't comprehend. But yeah, it just barreled right past her. So.
And she said it sounded just like a horse, like heavy breathing, like a horse running right by her.
Right.
And this
was in daylight, right? Daylight or dark?
It was first thing in the morning, 5 a.m. So whatever, there might have been sunlight in the sky, or it might have been still dark. I think it was dark because I think it was fall.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fall. Yeah, it was last October. Yeah.
So it was just at sunup or just before sunup?
Just before. She said it was dark, but it was pre-dawn.
Yeah. Okay, that makes more sense now why it thought it could run past her and get away with it. It's not something I expect to happen during daylight.
Yeah.
No.
Like there was lights on in the house. I don't think the lights were on outside. I don't think those were on. She was just letting the dog out. So,
Yeah, I think shortly after that, the husband was up putting more floodlights up the next day, I think.
Well, with more floodlights and the removal of the cedar trees, yeah, they're not going to come as close as they were before.
Right.
And the cameras too. So. But they black out, so I'd like to know how they can do that.
Yes, no. We know that they have that effect on the cameras, but we don't know if they are aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do they understand what a camera does?
Yeah.
Who knows? We know that they can detect the electronics somehow.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But I don't know that they understand the function.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For sure. Hard to say.
Yeah. We have no way of judging it, do we?
Well, we don't have all the answers yet, but I guess that's why we're doing this stuff that we're doing.
I'm reminded of the one I told you about where this branch was waved in front of the camera by something that was stood behind the camera.
Yeah.
So maybe they do understand the function.
Well, here's the thing for me, like because of what had happened with my trail cameras, I ended up getting just as an experiment at my fire pit, where I had the cameras going and I had that weird look, could have been a wave of a hand or something running by really fast, I don't know, but it was right in front of the camera, and a still shot. So I was going to put a mirror across, and I have a large retail mirror from a place I used to work at, and I was going to lean it against the tree and see if it would get any reflection of something trying to trigger it, like standing behind the camera.
That's a good idea.
So, but the only problem is I just don't want to go back and clean up glass if they decide to throw a rock through it.
My next setup, which I haven't deployed yet, is to put. I did it once before. Is put 2 cameras back to back. So you first of all got a 362 degree view, or you put 2 cameras 100 feet apart or 75 feet apart, looking at each other.
Yeah.
And nothing can come behind one of the other cameras and wave a stick without the other camera picking it up.
Oh, okay.
Exactly. Well, that's a good idea.
Well, maybe I'll try it this summer if I get up there. I gotta still, the trail cameras are all there. I just haven't been up there since last October.
Yeah.
You still have cameras there from last October?
Well, no, they're not. They haven't been deployed. They're at the house, just ready to go.
Oh yes,
So,
yeah,
yeah. I brought them in for the winter. So.
yeah, of course.
Yeah. Well, Peter, it's been great. Thanks for joining us today. And is there any website we can send people to if they want to find out more about your organization?
Well, we have a Facebook group, Ontario Sasquatch, and we're also setting up a website, which is not online yet. It's online for testing, but it's not. There's no access to it. That website will have a report link where people can report their sightings. It'll also have a lot of information and a lot of our reports, which are just summaries without any contact information, of course, for the witnesses, but just general descriptions of the reports and quite a lot of Sasquatch knowledge that's been gained through the years. That should be online fairly soon, but with everything else that's going on, we just haven't had a chance to actually get it going.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But thanks for having me.
Well, I appreciate you coming on. So I'm sure we'll be in touch, sharing info if we come across anything interesting.
Yeah, we'll let you know.
Yep. Okay, thanks very much.
Well, thank you, Peter. We'll talk to you soon.
Very good. Signing out.
So that was interesting with Peter Smith. So yeah, I guess we're going to sign out too. Anybody who wants to share some reports, of course, your information will remain hidden. You can contact us on Facebook at Hastings County Sasquatch Facebook page or on hcs. What is it?
Well, we have a Proton Mail. It's hc.sasquatch@protonmail.com.
There we are.
Yeah, it's a secure email site. So just give us.
If you'd like to put it on there, you can, or you can.
Yeah, you can email your story there, or
Private
your
message.
contact info. We can contact you, or if you had something strange going on your property, maybe one of us can pop out and meet up with you sometime.
And again, it doesn't have to be exactly in Hastings County, but any of the surrounding counties. If it's definitely a story of interest, we definitely want to hear it. So let's get the shares out there for everybody.
By all means. Well, until next time, we'll talk to you soon.
Hastings County Sasquatch out.